We had a lot of people making a lot of noises before this verdict saying, this is in the States I'm talking about, that if this doesn't come back as guilty of murder, we're going to tear the place up. I mean, that was the level of anger. So in that respect, I suppose that the crowd got what they wanted. Would that be fair?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I think that if this had been a not guilty verdict, given that we all watched what happened and the history and the recent and long history of racial violence by the police against black people, there would rightly have been a major reaction. All this has done is said that's the thing that should have happened, and I think that's why the reaction has been largely muted. I don't think anybody's celebrating. This is just really the result that should have.
Well, apparently there were parties in the States, I'm told, celebrating. I think in as tasteful way as one can. I mean, you're right. I mean, at the end of this, a man is still dead, and that is clearly not a good look for anybody in terms of the legalities or the standing of the police. But you mentioned the word race there, of course, and this wasn't a racist crime. This was a crime of a policeman doing something very, very bad indeed. Why did you mention the word race there when it's not part of the charge sheet?
Because unfortunately, what's on the charge sheet doesn't necessarily reflect what is in reality. And the truth is that, look, this isn't a coincidence. This is part of a broader way in which the police deal with black people, particularly in the United States, but also here. And if you look at the cases just today, Ma'Khia Bryant, a 16-year-old girl shot by Columbus PD.
Oh, the girl who was trying to stab two people, you mean?
There is a long pattern of black people being treated.
Just to clarify, it's the girl who was trying to stab two people that was shot by the police. Is that
the 16-year-old child who was shot by the police. Yeah. We could.
You missed out the fact she was trying to stab two people. That's all I'm.
What was Breonna Taylor doing in her home? Was not doing anything. Jacob Blake, whose video.
No, I know. Nothing at all. And of course, I could bring you.
There is a number of places you go to.
Yeah, I could bring you that indeed, and nobody's going to dispute those, and nobody's going to dispute, the hundreds of white people that are in similar circumstances, as I'm sure you know. I know there's a different proportion of percentage and all the rest of it, but in some areas it ain't far off, and it's not a good look if somebody dies at the other end or the business end of a police gun. I
don't think you'll find a similar video of a white person being choked with a knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes.
Well, I don't think you'll find many videos of anybody that happening to be fair. Come on. I mean, that's not something but you can find lots of videos. If you want to find a video of a white kid crawling on his knees saying, please don't shoot me in a hotel corridor, I can show you that. If you want a picture of an autistic kid begging for his life or then being knocked out and they say, oh, he's probably gone to sleep and he's actually dying.
No one is saying the study. I'm not saying the police kill lots of people. The police don't just kill black people. But the police clearly have a problem if you look at the disproportionate deaths. And also, if you look at the way that in a public spectacle, a black man in America, given the history and present, a police officer thought it was perfectly fine to kneel on his neck for 9 minutes while he's being videoed, that you cannot take race out of that equation.
Why can you not take race out of that question?
Unless you're trying to be ignorant. I mean, if you are trying to be ignorant, ignore the history and present, then you can.
No, but how could you possibly know that there's race in that whole image, that disturbing and sickening image of George Floyd on the ground and him with how can you from that extrapolate a racist component?
Because we understand how the world works, and we understand what America is. We understand the history of it and the present of it. I mean,
you can't know that. You can't possibly. You'd have to at least consider. You might say, "I think."
So the question is, then, let me turn this around. So unless he's standing there saying "you N-word" or has a hood over his head, then that's the only way you could prove racism.
Well, in that case, that's an argument to suggest that no police officer should ever have any kind of violent confrontation with a black man.
No, not at all.
Well, it is, because you will always say it's racist, unless in the absence of using the N-word.
No, not at all. But if you're talking about the way that the police treated that black man in public, it was essentially a public lynching, and in a country that has a history of lynching and a present of disproportionately killing
why are you throwing the word lynching into this? Why are you invoking the Klan into what is one man's horrendous crime against another?
So you like to live in a world where we don't look at the history, present, the statistics, whatever's happening.
Kehinde, you could write for the Daily Star with this level of sensationalism, mate. I'm telling you.
Lynching. What's a lynching? What's the definition of a lynching? A public execution of somebody. And
but we know what you're trying to say, don't we? I don't want to fall out with you on this.
I am saying. I'm not trying to say anything.
So you're suggesting it's kind of up there with hanging people from trees. It's kind of a very similar thing.
This was a modern day lynching by the police. I
don't think you'd get that. You could call it a killing. You'd give it the right context. You'd give it the right level of intelligent analysis, and you wouldn't extrapolate that lynching was the way to define it, unless you want to call anybody who's killed
as I am paid
lynching.
for professional intelligent analysis. I'm pretty sure that that is the faith which was given.
I mean, I never heard the prosecutor use the word lynching. I never heard the judge use the word lynching. But hey,
that's the legal context. The legal context is not the same as the real context. The legal context is what you can prove in court. That is not the same.
And you couldn't. And
lynching never went to court, because in fact, lynchings, most of them never went to court because they weren't prosecuted.
So anybody that is killed by the police who's black, it's a lynching.
That is not what I said. I said a pub killed in that public spectacle evokes the idea of a modern day lynching.
So now it's the idea of it evokes the idea. I mean, I think it evoked the idea of police brutality and a madman and a psychopath who didn't know the rules of his job. I mean, whether he meant to kill him. Do you think he meant to kill him first? I mean, because that would be extraordinary.
This isn't one bad apple. What were his colleagues doing?
No, I'm with you. Listen, you're going to get no arguments from me on what happened that day at all. We're on the same page on this. What I'm interested in is your desire to bolt on a racist element with literally no evidence.
Only an intelligent analysis only an unintelligent analysis could possibly take race out of that equation.
Why?
I'm sorry. Given the history, present, the context of it, there's no other way to read it. This is the only thing.
Why is there no? Don't explain it to me. I'm happy to be convinced, but I want to know why there's no other way to read it than racist.
So if you have a police force which disproportionately and quite highly disproportionately kills African Americans, if you have a country which is this is why lynching actually is quite important. This kind of spectacle of violence in public has that in its history. If you have a country which clearly has very problematic ways in which it deals with black people in the public arena and by the police, and then you have a police officer who feels he has the right to kneel on the neck of a black man for 9 minutes, and his colleagues walk around like this is fine, and this all happens in public. If you possibly think you can understand that without race, then I don't really know what to say.
Well, I mean,
race has to be in that equation.
It has to be in that equation, or it could be in that equation, because they're two different things, aren't they? I mean, you're talking about this as if they were enjoying creating a spectacle for people to see.
I'm saying that any intelligent analysis would not remove race from that equation. Not the only thing.
No, any intelligent analysis would require you to provide evidence of race within that, rather than your desire to think. Now, just because you can provide an example of where another person of colour has been killed by the police, that doesn't follow that Mr Floyd died as a result of racist intent.
This is the problem when we're trying to understand racism, is that you're looking for hoods. You're looking for N-words.
I'm not. I'm certainly not looking for hoods and N-words. I get that
you require. What proof would you require?
Yes, but to turn that on its head, to come back to what I said a second ago, I mean, how could you, without having to reach a conclusion that every single time a police officer comes into contact with a black male, then you're going to say the same thing?
No, not at all. Not at all. If you had a police officer come into contact with black people lots of times, if someone's armed, that would make a difference. If you have an unarmed person, that is clearly different. If you look at the way he's not just that he's unarmed, he's unarmed, he's shackled, and then he kneels on his neck.
Why can the cop not just be a psychopathic maniac? I mean, I honestly believe that if that was a white guy in the car, exactly the same thing would have happened.
And that's an unintelligent analysis. I'm sorry.
No, because you're not a white man. You don't know. Well, there isn't zero evidence to support that.
There is zero evidence to support that.
What do you mean there's zero evidence to support? There's as much evidence to support that as there is for you to support the fact that he was killed because he was black.
No, there isn't.
They're literally the same thing.
The evidence here is they have a pattern of police officers in America and obviously in the UK as well, but this is folks in America.
We don't have anything like this in the UK, by the way, so let's not even go.
Disproportionate violence to black people. That's what the police have. There's evidence for that. And you have somebody acting in an extremely disproportionate way towards black people. How could you possibly say that doesn't count in this interaction?
No, I'm not suggesting we don't look at all of those figures. I'm suggesting we can look at lots of other reasons why black people in certain parts of America come into contact with the police more so than people of other races, including whites. I think you could look at that as well. But I mean, you're still talking about, in terms of sheer numbers, you're still talking about more white people. I mean, if you're a suicidal victim, if you're a suicidal person and you're going a bit mad in the street waving a gun, you're more likely to be shot if you're white than black in the United States.
Yeah, but
does that mean that the police in America don't like depressed white people?
Well, firstly, on a sheer numbers, there are more white people in America than there are black people. So clearly, the police are going to kill. Police should actually, if you think
But
about
as a
it,
percentage,
proportionately.
same
But
difference.
proportionally, are you denying the simple reality that proportionally you are more likely to be killed by the police if you're unarmed, or generally if you're black?
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is that the argument deserves more than just throwing out the line institutional racism or that cop is racist. I think you have to look deeper into that.
I don't think you heard me say that.
No, but that the
the
implication of what you're saying is that that's where we're at. That cops just have this mindset: I'm white, I'm therefore better. He's black, his life doesn't matter. Shoot him. That I don't think is what's at play.
That is what I said. Again,
no, but I think that's the implication of what you're saying.
No, the implication is that there are institutional problems. There are reasons why even if you look at why is it that police come into contact with black people more frequently in America, you can't look at that without race. Race is such an important part of the inner city in America, where people live, the conditions people live in.
No, I made those very points.
You take race out of any of them. Why would you take race out?
I made those very points at the beginning. Listen, Kehinde, thank you. Always good to talk. Dr. Kehinde Andrews, Professor of Black Studies at Birmingham City University. You heard what he said, 0344 499 1000. It's Ian Collins on Talk Radio, 1:45.